Only mode.
Good afternoon and welcome to the RISMedia ACE Content Solutions webinar, Operational Excellence. Does your back office align with your back pocket? My name is Cleve Gaddis. I am a coach with Workman Success Systems. I'm also a practicing real estate agent in Atlanta, Georgia, and a team leader. I have had the opportunity to host 4 or 5 of these RISMedia webinars in the past, and I have been on probably 15 or 20 of them in the last couple of years, and I always get a ton of great information. We've got some wonderful panelists, and I also want to start out by saying thank you to our sponsor, MoxieWorks. As we go through today's webinar, if you have questions, you have a questions box on your GoToMeeting control panel, and if you'll type your question into that question box, it'll show up on my end, and I will do my best to make sure we get your question answered by the end of the presentation for sure. Again, my name is Cleve Gaddis. I'm coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia. You want to make sure you stay on for the entire presentation. We do have some free gifts for you. A couple of our panelists are going to talk about different tools they use in order to improve the behind-the-scenes operations of their business, and we're going to share with you some of those materials. We'll give you a website. You can go and download the materials today so you can start using them this afternoon. When most people think about making your operations, your back office, match your back pocket, they think we're looking for creative things to streamline operations. I recently read a book. It's a new book called The Advantage from Patrick Lencioni, a gentleman who wrote The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and he talks about the 3 biases that companies have, and one of them is called the sophistication bias. And he says organizational health is so simple and accessible that many leaders have a hard time seeing it as a real opportunity for meaningful advantage. He says that the key to business is creating a healthy organization, and that the keys to creating healthy organizations are typically not the fancy, the flashy, the new technology. It's really applying the simplest systems in your business. And he says that businesses don't understand that because they think it has to be newer, bigger, better, flashy in order for it to really add to your organizational health. But it's really the simple things. So what we're going to talk about today are not necessarily things that you have never heard before, but it's going to be good, simple operational systems for doing things that we all need to get good at. I do interviews with our panelists before we have these webinars, and I'll be honest with you, the 2 different panelists who are practicing real estate agents, they come at the business from 2 entirely different angles, but the way they do things on their end is fascinating. So I think you're going to get some good information that you can put to use in your business right away. And again, don't forget, if you have questions, open up your questions panel and put the questions in, and I'll try to make sure they get answered. Our sponsor today is MoxieWorks, and we have on with us a very special guest, Mike McHenry, who's the Vice President of Channels, Partnerships, and Integrations at MoxieWorks. Mike, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Cleve. Looking forward to this.
So, well, listen, we appreciate it, and hopefully the product at MoxieWorks, or what MoxieWorks is so important in today's world because it sort of helps everybody bring together different tools. But it's my understanding you've got about 20 years of experience in helping people integrate various pieces of technology. And if you're listening and your business is anything like mine, every time I get one more piece, one more thing I want to add to the business, I have a hard time getting it to talk to anything else. And all I do is wind up creating a significant headache. So if you want to, Mike, let me turn it over to you for just a second. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about MoxieWorks?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks for that introduction. I appreciate it, Cleve. MoxieWorks, we're a productivity software company for residential real estate brokers. And over the past 5 or 6 years, we've developed a set of tools that sit on our own platform for integrating data and information between our tools. And it became apparent to us not long ago that this whole notion of an open platform has a much bigger impact in real estate than just our own tool set. And as we go out and meet with brokers and work with our own clients, it's interesting the mix of tools that any broker will purchase and deliver to their agents. And the challenge with all this is that every broker and every agent has this discrete set of independent tools, but nothing really talks to each other. And what the value of an open platform, if you do it right, is that these tools that you've selected for your brokerage all communicate with each other, so you can eliminate things like redundant data entry in forms. All that data already exists in a database. We just expose it and make it easy for all the other tools that are in our sort of plug and play platform to talk to each other and take advantage of that data. So there's certainly efficiencies to gain from the agent's point of view, but also elimination of errors and mistakes and redundant data entry. And that's really the value of an open platform, is allowing for agent productivity and preserving the investment that brokers make in the tools that they already have for their brokerage, but also allowing sort of what we call future-proofing your brokerage as well, meaning that, as we all know, in the technology world, somebody inevitably is going to come out with a new shiny thing. It could be this afternoon, it could be 6 months from now or 16 months from now. But there's always going to be some new technology tool that will claim to improve agent GCI by 40 or 50%, and that's going to get your attention. And what happens is you have to then make a decision on, well, geez, I know I've already made an investment in a set of tools. What do I do now? I have to throw out what I already have. How do I integrate this new shiny thing? And with an open platform, it's relatively easy to make those changes and preserve the value of the investment you've already made, but also future-proof your brokerage for new shiny things that inevitably will come down the pike. And that's really what we provide now to the industry, is this open platform with complete open APIs that allow all of these different tools to talk to each other through our user interface.
It's amazing. And this next slide gives a list of some of the different online sources that are already set up to work with MoxieWorks. I assume you probably saw that, but it looks like you've got you kind of cover the gamut there.
We do, and we do a couple of things ourselves, but we're not going to be everything to everybody. So it just makes sense for us to partner with the leaders in different categories, whether it's lead generation or marketing or DTM. There's plenty of companies that do that really, really well. And the best thing that we could do for the industry is make it easy for them to plug and play in an open environment. So no matter whether you use SkySlope or DocuSign or .loop, it doesn't matter to us. All three are great tools, and you choose one for your brokerage that you like. And then we're already fully integrated with all of the tools that you see on the slide, but there's going to be others too. And that's kind of my point, Cleve, is that what we're looking at today, these might be the best of breed in any given category, but who knows what's going to come next 6 months in lead generation. And a broker ought to have the opportunity to easily integrate some new lead generation tool into a platform, and we allow that to happen.
Well, and Mike, you said who knows what's coming, and the answer is nobody knows what's coming, but I can tell you it will be different than it is today, period. So, Mike,
sure.
Thank you so much for being on, and thank you for sponsoring this. Wouldn't be possible without you or MoxieWorks today. Let's jump on in and start having a conversation with our first of two panelists. This is Jim Knowlton. In addition to being a friend of mine, Jim is an award-winning real estate sales agent and the mega team leader and the director of coaching for Workman Success Systems, who's a coaching company that I work for as well, specializes in coaching and helping the development and building of teams throughout the country. One of the things that I think is most interesting about Jim is he is an avid commercial pilot. He's a home builder, and he loves spending time at his vacation home in southern Florida, which he brags to me about all the time, spending time with his wife of 26 years and also his two daughters. So, Jim, let's just jump right in. you're a I'm going to call you a penny pincher, and I know that sounds like that I'm saying you're cheap in front of people throughout the country. You are a penny pincher if I've ever seen one. You make all your dollars be accountable. So just talk to us a little bit about some of your keys to having a profitable business from a real estate team perspective.
Well, I think that agents often think about, how much money they make, or, they run around chasing the golden coin that never shows up. I'm a firm believer that whatever I do is going to be profitable. If it's not going to be profitable, I'm not going to do it. If it's within the business, I'm going to have someone else do it if I don't have to do it. And in general, I'm going to know my numbers every month. We run our closing numbers and our expense numbers back on a whiteboard for 3 years. So as I was sitting here and, just to show that things don't always go perfectly, I was able to see that May was the worst month that we've had in the last 3 years. But as I told a coaching client this morning, if I run back January, February, March, and April, I'm ahead of my numbers and I'm ahead of my GCI goal. So for me, it's kind of okay. But what we've decided as a company and as a team is if it's not profitable, we're going to wait until what's profitable comes next.
And so you talk about trying to stay focused yourself, and I'm sure you're doing this with your coaching clients as well, keeping them focused on doing the tasks that are $300 to $500 per hour tasks. But there's so many other urgent things or shiny things, as you mentioned. How do you stay focused on doing the high priority or the high profit activities?
Yeah, it actually leads to number 2 kind of nicely, Cleve. Thank you. I mean, I believe that so little of what we do in real estate is what the lead agent or licensee needs to do. I think there's so much of what we do that is marketing, repetitive paper pushing, that kind of stuff. So what we do as a team is we try to limit my involvement to things that are directly required to me as a licensee. So really the only things that I do is I present to sellers, I negotiate for sellers, and I negotiate with my buyers and buyers agents with my sellers, and then pretty much everything else is run by the team, and that's by people that we hire very carefully over a long period of time and train them very, very well. And I think that's where we're able to focus on those $300 to $500 an hour tasks instead of the $12 to $15 an hour tasks.
And as you and anybody who's on the phone who's ever started running a team or created a brokerage and had other agents, the initial process of farming off or farming out the people who wanted to work with you or who needed to talk to you to get them to deal with somebody else, that's not always an easy process. How did you deal with that when you first got started?
We've started since the beginning of clearly defining with people exactly what to expect. So, I always use the example, if somebody calls in and wants me to come take a look at listing their home, my assistant on the real estate side will get all their information, tell them what we need in the meeting. Then she is also licensed, so she'll pull all of the information, do the CMA, do all of the listing paperwork, have everything ready for me, and then we'll do a quick brief meeting before I go. Then we'll turn around, I'll go do the presentation, but then at the presentation, I tell them as they're signing, this is the process moving forward and who you're going to be talking to, because I want them to know that the admin team does a much better job at knowing what's going on and having the right tools up to tell them what's going on. And until we get to the point where we're going to be negotiating, they're going to hear from them weekly, not me. So what we do is we talk them through the active listing phase, then the contract to close phase, and what those steps are and who in the office they're going to be talking to.
And what's interesting is most often when people are trying to grow a team or trying to go their brokerage and they know that their clients, or maybe it's the co-op agent or somebody, is going to be dealing with somebody other than them, or they want them to, they never really go through the process of telling the other person what to expect. So
people keep calling you, and they really don't need to talk to you, and that's because you didn't tell them the right person.
And maybe you just have a form, a PDF form that you can send via email. It says, hey, now we're under contract to the co-op agent. If you have to deal with, accessing the home or doing this, here's who you deal with. And if you have this type of question, you do this. And if you have this type of question, you do that. And maybe even having an email address where they send everything for the transaction to one email address that then gets distributed to the parties who need to see it and to be involved. So, Jim, you've been in business a long time. Go ahead.
Well, we actually do that. So my email is actually the team email. So if you send it to me, what happens is all 3 of my admin team get it, and the only ones that I get are the ones that they forward to me to do specifically. So all inbound represented leads, anything to do with contract to close, anything that's not required me, they take care of it, and it's done. So we actually do that exact thing, Cleve.
And so you mentioned here on this slide that you feel like a team leader's or a broker's responsibility is to lead generate for listings. I know I've been in the business a long time, and my family's been in the business a long time, and that's something that I don't do enough. Do you have any particular tools that you use to make sure you're spending the right amount of time?
You know, I love your opening. Yeah, I love your opening because one of the things that I find both in coaching and in mentoring other agents is, you know, they're always looking for the shiny thing that's going to solve the problem. And, you know, I've been coaching with workmen for, you know, I've been with Verl for 20 years, and I've been the director of coaching for almost 3 years. And what's really funny is very few agents have mastered the basics at a high level. So when I'm lead generating for listings, I'm primarily using our top 50, which is the 50 key people for me that are going to be referrers on a relationship basis. And then I'm doing the big grab with what we call a 4-contact SOI. So I'm doing birthday cards, I'm doing house anniversary cards, I'm doing a pie giveaway, I'm doing 3 or 4 general holidays, but I'm constantly in mind share with my sphere, and I either have a very high level or I have a very, you know, good solid, but they know it's not programmed because it's different all the time. But what they know is that I'm thinking of them and I care. And for me, I think for most people, if we did that at a high level, we'd have a majorly good business, and it's very inexpensive to operate. So that for me is where I lead generate for listings, relationships.
Now, second, you have lead generate for great talent. And, you know, we hire a lot of people on our team, but we tend to be reactive recruiters. So this person quits, or we lose a buyer's agent, or something happens, and then we start the recruiting process. But it sounds to me like you're saying the recruiting process needs to be a proactive process, and you need to start looking for talent even before you need them.
Yeah, we have 2 things, right? We have opportunity hires, which I think most of us are guilty of doing, which is, you know, there's a live body, I've got a live seat that needs someone to answer the phone, and I throw them in there because they're going to do okay. Or there's the strategic hire, which is, geez, I know the buyer team is growing, so I'm going to need at least 1 or 2 agents this year. Why don't I start, you know, 2 or 3 months in advance and really target my search for the right person, the right personality profile, somebody who wants to show up to work every day, all those crazy things. So I believe as important as lead generating for listings is, lead generating for people is as important. And the reason being is we make positions for great people, and we top grade on our team, meaning we always have somebody on the bench ready to come in. And again, if we're not doing this from a pain position, we tend to get better people, better value match, and longer. You know, our goal, myself here at the team, or from a coaching perspective, is I want somebody we hire to plan to be with us 3 to 5 years.
Absolutely. And I think everybody on the call probably knows what you mean when you use the word train, but you've got in your next line, set standards. Talk to us a little bit about what you mean by setting standards, because I assume you mean setting standards and then tracking to see that those standards are met, which is accountability, which, oh my gosh, talk about a word that people hate in real estate, accountability. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. Yeah, thanks for fixing my slide for me. Yeah, because accountability is a huge part of it. But when I had one of my coaching clients that hired somebody, and come to find out, you know, the first 4 weeks she couldn't show up every day, and I said to him, well, since the number one thing on our teams is that we're not going to not show up every day. We're going to do a daily huddle. We're going to do, you know, all of our top 50 and our daily success habits. How did that happen? And it was a system breakdown. So when we set standards, you know, if our standard is that our agents need to do a minimum of 2 deals a month, and they're not doing it, we need to have that conversation. But the way that we do that is we have daily meetings with them, so we're not just dropping bad news on them. We're tracking standards. We're tracking their activities. You know, Cleve likes to say that he likes to track belly-to-belly meetings, which is he wants people out face-to-face, and the reason being is that's our highest return. So that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that they're doing the actions that are going to lead to the transactions that are going to lead to the closings, and we do that on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis.
So the problem, Jim, is when you start setting standards and creating accountability, you are creating the perfect storm for people to fail or fall short. Now, my guess is when you were raising your daughters when they were younger, and you said the standard is we get up on time and we brush our teeth and we get ready for school and we're ready to go at the bus stop by 7:20, my guess is you did not remove them from the family the first time they failed to meet that standard.
No, they're still with me.
But what happens is, as brokers and team leaders, we try to create this accountability, and then all that happens is all the the areas where we fell short, where we were falling short all along. We just didn't know it. We didn't acknowledge it. We didn't see it. And so they put the accountability in place, and people start falling short, and they don't know what to do. So they decide the best way to handle accountability is not to worry about it, and then it's not a problem.
Yeah.
So
well, and here's the and well, I was going to say, here's the thing is if we haven't held people accountable, or we didn't have job descriptions, or we didn't have standards, and then one day, we decide that's a really good idea, and we tell everybody what the standard is, and then we just start, pounding them over the head, we're not going to get anything from that. We have to get buy-in. We have to have people understand why we're doing it. With my team, I want them to do more transactions because I want them to bring home more money to their families. So when that's the goal, that's why we set forward the standard for them. They understand that, but then we do the corrections in small increments, which is through daily huddles, not through an annual review. Doing an annual review without quantifiable numbers is like trying to correct your taxes on April 15th. You need to be doing that on January 1st, not April 15th.
Absolutely. And sorry to interrupt, but when you do a daily huddle and everybody leaves with assignments, do you expect 100% of the people to complete all those assignments 100% of the time?
Absolutely not. Progress, not perfection.
That's right. So what happens, we try to hold people accountable, and we expect them to be perfect, not just make progress, and that is a huge, huge difference. Jim, I'm on the next slide, your 300 to 500 hour task versus 10 to 12. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add for this slide.
No, and I think the key example is we still do a lot of bank work, right? So everybody thinks that bank work's junk, you don't make any money at it. I like to use the example that we have a lot of bank properties that we go to once. Our contract requires we do certain things, and then we list them. And, so if I make $1,000 and I go to the property once, that's $1,000 an hour. My overhead remains the same, but I still made the $1,000. So that's a great example of a $300 to $500 an hour task, as opposed to doing a flyer for that house, which I'm not going to do because that's a $10 to $12 an hour task.
So what's interesting, and I know I'm not one of the panelists on the webinar, but one of the things that I did initially to help me get my mind on the higher profit activities is I decided that I was going to stop scheduling anything on my own calendar. And so I don't mind going where my people think I need to go and doing what my people think I need to do, but I don't want to go through the process of scheduling it, because I schedule it and I reschedule it, and I'm not getting paid any money to do that. And I think if you're on the call and you want to help people understand how to value their time, you have to make sure you value your time first, because then it will be very, very easy for you to help somebody else learn how to value their time. Let's talk about the hiring process. You have a very specific system you use for hiring, and I'd love you to kind of review that with the attendees today.
Yeah, so, first of all, I always want to be looking, because I think that we're always one or two great hires away from changing our business and our life. When you find that person that has, I was literally just talking before this call with somebody, and they said to me, hey, we hired somebody, and we thought we got a rock star, and we got kind of a line person. And I said, well, how did that happen? And they said, well, we were behind the 8 ball. We needed a person. We picked the best person, and we didn't do a good pick. I said, well, that's fantastic, because now we have a body that's working, so we can move on and do a great job, and we can hire somebody. So what we didn't have is we didn't have a pool of people, so we had to start from the beginning. That meant that we were in a time crunch. So number one, be on the lookout for great talent. If we figure 3 hours of lead generation is what we're trying to do every day as a real estate professional, I want to spend 1 hour of that of lead generating for listings. I want to spend 1 hour of that lead generating for the great people that I see. Today ISAs are very hard to come by. It's really hard to find a listing specialist. So I want to be looking for those guys all the time. And then what I want to do is I want to know those positions, and if I find a great ISA, I'm going to make a place for them. When we talk about opportunity hires, I talked about that briefly, but an opportunity hire is your brother-in-law, is somebody it's an agent that's failing in your business or in your brokerage. That person isn't doing it for a reason, and we could look at why and, kind of how their fit is, but the chances of them having a miraculous change coming to your team is probably not going to be very good. A lot of people only look within their brokerage. They don't want to take the time to post and to look for people. We can use great things today like Facebook or Indeed or Craigslist. They're all free. We can constantly be looking. And then lastly, follow the process. So not everybody is great, so we want to go A to Z on the process. So we run an ad. We do an initial review, which I always say there's no yes, there's only a no and maybe. The
hey, Jim,
maybe pile.
Can I interrupt you just one quick second? Because I know when you run an ad, you specifically put hurdles in place to see if you can determine whether or not the people who respond will follow directions. Will you talk about that just a minute?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. What we do is we make sure that it's a specific letter related to real estate. So if I get a letter that I'm a great administrator or I was a great car salesman, that's a huge black mark for me. We're also gonna ask for the resume. Sometimes we'll ask to save it in a different format. So instead of being just a Word document, we may say we want it a different way, and that would be specifically for our admins because we want to make sure that they know how to convert files. We may say to call a Google Voice number and have them leave us a 5-minute message about why they think they'd be a great real estate salesperson. And the reason is if they're just breezing over the ads, they're not going to catch that part and they're not going to make that phone call.
Absolutely. I love that. And then so as you go through the process, do you follow the same exact process with every single person? And talk about the personal interview and the reference checks, because I know you're really big on the reference checks. I've heard lots of people in my life, and 3 months into it, I thought to myself, man, I really should have talked to somebody else before I hired this person. So talk about that.
Well, I tell a funny story. I told it yesterday. My wife and I and our team, we hired a lady several years back, and we followed, and this is to say the system isn't perfect. We hired a lady who had great references, was a great interview, showed up on the first day, was amazing. We found a rock star, didn't show up on the second day, and the third day showed up drunk. So let me just say that there is no perfect way to do this, and I always say we hire slowly and fire quickly, and she was gone that day. But yes, I do follow the same system every time, and what that is I do the phone interview, I do a DISC, a personality profile. Once I know that the person has the general skills we're looking for, DISC can't tell us intelligence or integrity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to interview for intelligence, and I'm going to check references for integrity. Our comprehensive interview is about 28, 29 questions. It takes, on average, an hour and a half to 2 hours. And I teach my agents that you can only talk less than 5% of the time. We're not selling the position. We're learning the values of the other party. And then lastly, I'm going to get 3 references when I invite them. I get 3 references when I'm doing their resume. I get 3 references when I invite them to the formal interview because I'm doing a job application just like we would do at a store. And then if this person seems to be a finalist for me in the comprehensive interview, I then turn over their paperwork and I ask them for 3 additional references. That way I can go 3 deep and I can talk to people that haven't been prepped because I've probably gone beyond their ability to prep those people.
And if anybody's on the call who's ever read a book called Who, W-H-O, it teaches a method for recruiting and hiring and developing people that is really all designed to make sure you get accurate information from your prospective recruits, and it talks about how you use the reference checks to get the right information. Hey, a couple of quick questions for you, Jim. Rita wants to know, what is DISC?
DISC is a personality profile. It is not proprietary, so there are literally, if not 50, 100 different companies. But what DISC does is it's kind of like the Myers-Briggs, if you've ever heard of that, but it breaks down personalities into 4 categories of like traits, D, I, S, and C. Simply put, D stands for driver determination, I stands for interpersonal or interested, S stands for systems or steadiness, and C stands for completion or compliance. And what we do is we have what's called a preferred profile at Workman for each position, ISA, admin, buyer specialist, replacement of me. And we start with that as our goal because we know that those skills are there, but we don't exclusively hire on it because, again, we can't get intelligence and integrity.
Absolutely. And another question, does LinkedIn play a role in your hiring process?
Absolutely. Any place where I can get people that I know, especially key allies or vendors. Facebook is huge. I have not done a great job with Snapchat or any of that stuff, but I would absolutely post that on LinkedIn. I do know some people squawk a little because I think they charge to place actual job ads on there. And again, that can be penny wise and pound foolish.
Absolutely. So let's talk about your last subject, which is to set your house up for success. In some metro areas throughout the country and in some smaller areas, the market is slowing down in some price ranges. And I know certain people are listening going, oh, my market's not slowing down. But trust me, at some point in time in the future, the market will slow down. And when that happens, we have to be very aware of the condition and the way buyers see our property. So talk about some of the things that you do to make sure that your properties always show top notch.
Yeah, it was really amazing. I actually was reading an article this morning, totally forgetting I was doing this today, and the article was about what really increases value of your home for sale. And I found it very interesting that a survey done by Zillow said, and what they did is they analyzed all of their pictures and all of their closings, and they found that on average, houses that were blue or light gray closed for $5,400 more than houses that were other colors. Houses that had stainless steel or brushed nickel, so all of your kitchen knobs, all of your bathroom knobs sold for more money, and houses that had non-finished like varnished banisters, but they had paint because that's what people want today, sold for more money. So what I like to do is, I'm not one of the people who goes in and says you have to completely rebuild your house, but I'm a really big person on painting. I'm a really big person on obviously cleaning up, decluttering, staging, primarily putting things away, getting rid of clutter. But I personally like to have any of our big inspections, depending on, what our municipalities may call for, but, septic and water. Radon in New England is a very big thing with a very, very quasi standard. So we want to get all those things up front, and the reason being is we have key allies who can help us with, pricing and that kind of stuff. So I'm gonna go through those things, and I'm gonna counsel my sellers as part of my listing presentation to explain to them why we get more money for their home and why we sell it in less time. And I'm gonna go over these very inexpensive things that are going to help them either have a more defensible position in the case of a bad inspection or a bad test, and also just mean that when people come in, they see a better quality product.
And you're doing that right from the very beginning. Jim, thanks. You are always a wealth of information. I've known you now for 3 or 4 years, and I love talking with you about how you do business. Always fascinating. We did get a question, which is really a comment from one of the attendees, who says that there is a great YouTube video to help you understand the DISC, D-I-S-C profile test. I don't have any way of sharing that with everybody, but certainly if you're on and you want to go learn more about that, maybe YouTube is a reference. And we also at Workman Success Systems have a great reference that shows you what type of personality profile your buyer's agent is preferred for buyer's agents or preferred for a client care coordinator, your administrative people. Next, I'm pleased to introduce ZacPasmanick. Zach and I do business in the same city, although he will tell you that I am not from Atlanta because I'm 22 miles north of Atlanta, and he is actually within the city limits of Atlanta. But he's been a top-notch real estate agent in Atlanta for 38 years, which is amazing. He is really a brand on his own, especially as you move closer to town. Been involved in 5,250 home sale transactions throughout his career, and he really loves helping individuals and families buy and sell their homes and takes special interest in whether or not they are happy. Zach, welcome to the call today.
Thanks so much, Cleve. I appreciate the opportunity to share today.
You have a very interesting perspective on the business. First of all, you are a high C, so you're more driven by data and accuracy than most of us. And as you and I were talking, preparing for this webinar, and you'll do, I don't want to give away all your business, but your team is well in excess of 2 million GCI on an annual basis, and you don't know how to write a contract. You don't know how to log into the listing service. You don't know how to use Top Producer. And so as you and I were talking about that, I pictured the Wizard of Oz, and I pictured somebody behind the curtain pulling all the strings and operating the business. And when you retire, and I know you'd love to sell your business at some point, maybe even sell it to your employees, but when you retire, you plan to hang around and do lead generation and conversion for your team. Talk about that.
Well, I've actually already announced my retirement, or at least my semi-retirement date of 02/02/20, which I think was 31 months from yesterday. And so it's my goal to sell half the team to the team, and I will work 24/7. That's 24 hours a week, 7 months a year. And,
I love it.
And it's my goal to strictly do business development and let those team members, both agents and admin, that would like to be part of the great investment, let them run the day-to-day operations and see what it's like to deal with real estate agents.
And you might even want to do something like an employee stock option plan, which certainly is not the purpose of today's call. But when you run a business as if you're the wizard behind the curtain, the business has a lot more value long term. I know you're the brand, and everybody knows the Zac team. Everybody in Atlanta knows who Zac is. They might not know your last name, but they certainly know your first name. And I think you're creating a business on a daily basis that has value and can be sold to somebody at some point in time in the future. Now, I know, and you use Boomtown. I didn't put Boomtown on here as your CRM because I'm not here to advertise for Boomtown. But one of the things that made a big difference in your business was to set up a specific system for managing your relationships with your clients and your leads. So talk to us a little bit about your CRM, both from how you manage those buyer and seller leads and also how you manage relationships with your existing clients.
Well, in reference to existing clients and our inactive clients, we still use Top Producer.
Okay.
To keep up with. We use Boomtown exclusively for our lead CRM, and so
okay.
we have. I think we've got about 60,000. Well, we have about 80,000 visitors a year to Boomtown. But to me, the best part of Boomtown is just the way the system works. Our listing leads, we have approximately 4,500 seller leads in Boomtown, and I'm a big listing agent. I do have 8 buyer specialists and 3 listing partners, but the favorite part of my business is the listings, and so I do a lot of lead generation to get listing leads into the system, and then we nurture them, we drip on them, and then they raise their hand and say, come list me.
So
that's worked out very well.
For those of you who are thinking, hey, I'd like to see exactly what Zac is doing, we'll actually get into that in just a little bit. But what I was fascinated by in doing the interview with Zac for this presentation was the fact that he knew he needed a good back end for dealing with clients. Now, it's interesting, and Mike, you'll appreciate this since your job is to take different technology and put them together. He's using one technology to keep up with his existing clients, his past clients. He calls it his inactive clients, people who've done business with him. But he's using another platform to communicate with people he has yet to do business with.
Right.
And we also, yes, but we also we do drip on our past clients a little through Boomtown and through Top Producer, but also a monthly mailing list. And
which is, by the way, which is a third resource that you're using.
And that's an internal newsletter that we put together.
Yeah, absolutely. But you use a third vendor, so it's not your Boomtown, it's not your Top Producer, it's somebody else.
Correct. And
right.
And it just keeps going. Then we also have Market Snapshot, which is a part of Top Producer. So
right.
Any buyer of our property, whether they're our client or a customer, as long as we have their email address, and our clients, we have their email address, but sometimes the other agent's client, we don't, but we try to get it, we drip on them once a month through Market Snapshot as well. We also,
I love it.
The thing that I would interject there, Cleve, sorry for the interruption.
Yeah. No, thank you, Mike.
Yeah, you have lead generation tools from Boomtown and CRM from Top Producer and marketing tools that you use for staying in flow with people in Sphere. Is that all of those systems, and maybe they are, Zac, if they're integrated nicely, so you generate leads from whatever source they can. In this case, Boomtown, that automatically gets fed into Top Producer or your CRM of choice, so an agent doesn't have to manually clock in leads into their CRM. And then you have marketing tools that take advantage of that information that's in the CRM with a set of processes and a proper cadence for how you're going to drip campaign to your agents. All of those things can be automated through an open platform and communication between each of the systems, and we're huge proponents of that.
And I don't think it's a problem that is unique to Zach, because when Zach describes his system, I'm like, oh, Zach, you got nothing on me. I got 2 or 3 systems doing this and 2 or 3 systems doing that, and none of the systems are talking to one another. I know that's not the purpose of the webinar, but I thought it was a great topic. Zach, let's talk about now. One of the things I got from our interview was that you value sellers way, 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 way before they're ready to sell. And most people in real estate, most teams, most individual agents, most brokerages, they don't have any value for someone who's not ready to sell today. So this is not the postcard that you mail into your market areas. I begged, I pleaded, I cursed at you. Nothing worked. I couldn't get you to give me your postcard, but I do have the rest of the system. So you're just simply mailing postcards on a monthly basis or once a quarter or as necessary into certain market areas to drive people back to your website to get market data about what's going on in the neighborhoods. Is that correct?
Yes, I have a postcard that says, if you're thinking about selling in the next 6 to 12 months and you're curious to what homes like yours are selling for, go to www.morningsidehomeprices.com. Or if we do the whole zip code, it's 30306, homeprices.com.
So like this one, so here is the landing page. So somebody would go to whatever it is, homeprices30306.com, and this is what they would see.
Right. And then they would sign up.
Okay, so if they so let's go to that so everybody can see it. So they'd get a form that looks just like this.
Mm-hmm.
And that would basically, once they enter their information, Zach, that would sort of unlock, if you will, or give them access to one page where you keep all of your data.
Yes, they automatically get an email with a list of the over 200 home price reports that we publish monthly.
So they would actually get an email that would link them to this page. Now, this is just the top 10% of the page, but you can see the reports that he produces by zip code. You can see the reports that he produces by neighborhood. So, for example, 2500 Peachtree, that's a building, condo building.
Right. Yeah, those are all condos over there on the right. And then we have all the zip codes that we work, which is about 20 different zip codes. And then we have neighborhoods by name. So it doesn't really matter where they are. They get all of them. They can search through all of them if they want. If you look at the top where it says click on a report to see a list of homes currently on the market.
Yep. So let's see here. So this is the report somebody would have gotten if they clicked on Ansley Parkside condo sales.
Right, and so those are the sales.
Okay.
But for the active listings, it takes them into a search that's already built into Boomtown. So I have all these landing pages in Boomtown with all the neighborhood active reports, because I could not publish active listings in my reports because it violates the terms of the MLS, because they're not my listings.
Got it.
And so now they get it. We put them into Boomtown, and we tease them a little bit there, and then they have to sign up to see more properties. So we generate additional buyer leads that way as well. The purpose is to get the seller lead, but we like to try to connect all the dots with all the different systems that we have.
So you're mailing out your postcard. They're being driven back to a landing page where you're collecting information. Then you're sending them via email the link to access the main page with all the data, and this is stored on some particular web vendor's site. Who does all of this information for you? Who keeps up with all of the statistics?
Well, I have a marketing manager, but all these statistics are done through my VA in the Philippines, who spends probably 80 hours a month putting all these reports together. And,
which is amazing. And so they're updated every single month?
Yes, because see how it says June 2017? Each postcard will have, for the home price reports for June, like the June 2017 Ansley Parkside report. So we put the name of the report as well as the date. And so we try to get all the postcards out earlier in the month in order to get a good shelf life. And we use the EDDM system, and we print all the postcards at Got Print, which is a national printer. I think we've got like 3 printing presses around the country. So it's the cheapest method of mailing. It's the cheapest printer that I've been able to find.
And the EDDM, for those who are listening who don't know what that is, that's just every door direct service from the post office, and it just provides a much cheaper alternative for mailing. So what I'm most impressed with is all of the systems you have in place for casting out a very large net for people who think they might be interested in selling in the next 6 months or year, who definitely want to know more about the local market. A couple of quick questions have come in, and I'd like to ask Zach and Jim, how many different types of systems, Zach, are you using where one system doesn't necessarily communicate easily with the other systems, where you have to enter data multiple times?
Well, the only 2 systems I think I have that communicate would be Top Producer and Market Snapshot.
And then so your Boomtown, and then your Top Producer, and then you've got a couple of other website vendors I know you use. You've got an email system through another company, and so you've got 5 or 6, it sounds like, where you're having to manually put data from one to another. Is that right?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Top Producer is used for keeping up with past clients, whereas Boomtown is all of our leads. Right.
Got it. So
long story. Okay. Yeah, Boomtown is so much easier to deal with on a lead basis than Top Producer, and so we just keep up with all the leads within Boomtown. And each of my agents has their own Boomtown account, whereas they don't have individual Top Producer accounts.
Right. Hey, Jim, same question for you. How many different systems do you have communicating? And this question is for Maria. How many different systems do you have that don't necessarily communicate well with one another you're using in business today?
Yeah, all of them. So I've also used Top Producer, Market Snapshot. I have about 8 or 10,000 people on a system called RealPro, which we're decentralizing to move to Boomtown. We use a separate supplier for our direct mail, just listed, just sold cards. And I'm sure I'm not thinking of some other ones that we use too, but those are our biggies. Oh, yeah, I said Top Producer, so that's it for me.
I forgot I have RealPro also.
Yes, well, and you also have another website vendor, and I can't even think of who it is that that's where you drive people for the landing page for the subdivision information. So, what's it called? Dagno, exactly.
Dagno, yeah.
Yeah.
But we're working on moving all of this over to Boomtown.
Got it. So Anne Marie has been asking have either of you looked into a new CRM tool called Contractually?
I'm a hesitant Top Producer user, and I have to say that I'm sure that there's other great things out there, but the fact is we use it from very rudimentary tools and we're pretty good at it. I'm sure down the road someday we'll make that jump, and I have clients who use other ones, but yeah, I have not.
Got it. So Maria says that she thinks there's probably 7 to 12 different systems that are not communicating with one another, and I'd say she's probably right. Zach, one of the other things that you do in your business that I think is just excellent is you are always making sure you keep your policies and procedures manual up to date. And this is huge. When you substitute one client care coordinator for another one, or one buyer's agent for another one, so many times we're starting at the very, very beginning, and they're starting over, and a good policies and procedures manuals keep you from doing that. So talk about who you use to keep up with that, kind of how it works.
I'll tell you a great example of what's happening right now. my marketing manager is relocating from Georgia, and I have a new marketing manager who's in training, and she'll be in 3-week training. So as they go through each system, he gives her the written procedure. And together they go through the procedure to, number one, give her something in writing because she's, it's impossible to remember everything, but it gives them an opportunity to see if the procedure is correct. The purpose of the procedures is in case anyone gets hit by the bus, someone else can take over and do that job. And I actually had my team manager fall, and I think was out of the office for 4 months. And because of the procedures, we were able to, well, actually, we started working on this policy manual through TKO right before she fell. And so while she was recuperating at home, we tried to finish the whole manual. But we did have, I've always been real big on written procedures to make it just an easier transition from one team member to another.
That's not your high C, is it, Zach?
Oh, yeah.
But when you think about it, your business is nothing more than a collection of the processes and the systems you use to do everything. So where do you turn in earnest money? When do you turn it in? How do you get your Boomtown training? All of that is in your policies and procedures manual. So you use a company, is it called TKO? Is that how does this work?
It's TKO, and I did a lot of, it's referred to as a SOP, a standard operating procedure.
Okay.
It wasn't until I started doing all the research that I found out this was big business. And most of it was just too big for me. And this company is owned by a broker in Australia. Well, he's not a broker anymore, but he started it because he got over the training every time he had someone new on in his company. So he started this procedure company. And it's worked very well for us because there's a table of contents with 150 procedures, and if a buyer agent starts, we're able to click off whatever procedure that person needs to know and send them a PDF, and then we ask them to spend the next couple of days reading every one of them. And the same thing for any position within the company, because not all the procedures pertain to every job responsibility. So it's still a work in progress, but I bet we're 95% to completion on it. And it's we'll pull a procedure if something doesn't happen right. We'll print the procedure. We'll see if there was a breakdown in the system, or does the procedure need to be rewritten.
So with you, it's not just a matter of whether or not the person who's currently working the system knows how to do it. It's a matter of whether or not your system is set up so that the next person comes in who knows how to do it. And that is really what we all need to be doing in order to build businesses that have value without us. Because in most cases, if most of us walked away from our business today, the business would be worth nothing. And it's because we don't have enough systems and processes and procedures in place. Zach, you still are very involved with your clients, with the community. You do customer appreciation events, and I know one of the things you have coming up, and I've heard you buy the pies from Costco, and they're the ones that weigh like 45 pounds. So I'm planning to sign up for my own pie, and I'll come down and pick it up from you. But talk about how you do these things and why you still do them.
Well, I actually am just going back to doing these things. I stopped doing a lot of this during the downturn, just as a budget item. But we do Pie Day twice a year. We do it on the 3rd of July and the day before Thanksgiving. We send, this was the July newsletter that went out. They have to go online and register for the pie. And for July, we give out either an American flag or the apple pie from Costco, and we have them register. So we get all their updated information again.
And you take that information and update your CRM. I love that. That's very sneaky.
Correct.
Now, a lot of people listening have heard of doing movie nights or movie events for their clients, but typically what happens is you rent out the whole movie theater. You know, it's $3,000 to $5,000 at a minimum, and it's a big, big headache. But you're going to do movie nights or movie days for your clients, and you've hired a company to help you do that. Tell us about that.
Well, I don't have that information with me, but there is a company, a national company that specializes in putting together the movie night. And so you go to one of these 24-screen theaters. You set it up in the lobby, a couple of tables. They do all the logistics with the theater company, and you invite everybody you want. And it really doesn't matter how many people show up, because you only pay for the amount of people that you give a movie ticket to. And if it's a 24 screen, they could show up over a period of 2 hours to see any of the 24 different movies. Also, you give them a drink ticket and popcorn ticket. So you really only pay for what they eat and drink and see, and we're hoping to get this all resolved and planned out by the end of the year.
And what's amazing, and most people don't understand this, is when you start doing client appreciation events, you know, if you advertise to 2,000 people you're giving away pies and only 50 people come and get a pie, a lot of people would look at it and say, well, that event is a failure. Well, no, because you advertise, you get credit for giving a pie to everybody, even if they don't come get one.
Yes, because they do bring that up. And here's the good thing about doing it the day before Thanksgiving and the day before the 4th of July. Most people are out of town.
So we used to, for example, Zach, give away tickets to the Atlanta Braves games, and we would only call the day before the game. So it means we had to call 20 people before we could find one that would take the tickets. And it was really because we wanted credit from the 19 people who couldn't go, not just to give the tickets to the one person who could go. There's a question from Andy, and his question is, what was the name of the website that Jim or Zach mentioned earlier? And they've mentioned Boomtown, which is a consumer-facing site. They've mentioned Top Producer, which is really a CRM system. I know Zach uses a couple of other systems as well. Andy, if that didn't answer your full question, feel free to type a question in again, and I'll make sure and get the answer for you. We've got some cool free gifts for you, and you'll actually access the gifts by going to workmansuccess.com/back office. And what we have for you are 3 different downloads. First of all, we have a Workman Success Systems hiring checklist, which gives you a step-by-step process for what Jim uses and the process that he teaches his coaching clients and uses in his own office. It's a great form. You get everything. Next, we have what's called an AMP scorecard. Workman Success Systems has a program called Admin Mastery Program, and it's designed to teach people all of the back office stuff, the policies and procedures and everything you need to have in place to run a business successfully. And the AMP scorecard is a tool you can use to rate your business. You get a score from basically 0 to 650, and you should be using this AMP scorecard to rate your business on a quarterly basis, so you can see where you're improving in your CRM and your marketing and your lead management and transaction management and business management and accounting. And it's a great resource that will be available there for you. And we'll also give you a download of the operations manual. Now, this is only 10 pages. It's not the full operations manual, but it gives you all of the different topics you need to have and some general discussion that, some general points that you can use to start that section of your operations manual. For our coaching clients, we provide these in the Google Drive platform as a Google Doc. But for you, it's there as a Word document, so you can download it and use it in your business instantly. You can use it tonight if you want to. And again, you get that by visiting workmansuccess.com/back office. Mike, I want to talk just real quickly as we close. Jim talked a lot about hiring, and I know people in today's world are the brokers that we're recruiting against are talking about putting everything in a cloud environment and making it very easy for agents to get to the tools. And I would assume a platform like yours would be something that could be used in a hiring process to compete with, you know, big brokers that are doing everything cloud, like an EXP or Keller Williams, who has a cloud platform. Am I right?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And you know, for recruiting and retaining agents, technology is a part of that recruiting and retention process for sure. And one of the things that that I love about, again, an open platform strategy is essentially a broker can create their own custom cloud that is basically an integration of the tools they've already purchased and ostensibly the tools that they will purchase in the future. And you can literally promote that as an asset of your brokerage, and a reason why an agent might want to join your team versus somebody else's team is because you're providing this broker integration cloud, if you will, for all the agents. You know, the other thing that I would say too, Cleve, is all this technology talk. It is super great, and I know we all spend a lot of time looking at different technologies and thinking about it, but there's a really key component to deploy. You know, one of the key ingredients is the deployment of these technologies, and I think it's really incumbent upon the broker to make sure, like it sounds like both Zach and Jim have done, is to make sure that the agents have the proper training and a roadmap and discipline and rigor, and how they're going to use all of these tools, because you can spend a lot of money on the technology. It doesn't really matter if you don't get the agents to use it.
And boy, that is a subject for another webinar, but I will tell you, the more simple you can keep the processes for the agents, the better off you'll be from a buy-in standpoint. If you've listened to today's webinar, we certainly appreciate your time. If you'd be interested in talking to Workman Success Systems about how Workman Success Systems might be able to help with your business, when you log on to workmansuccess.com/ and you get your downloads for the day / back office, just let them know you'd like to have a coaching consult, and somebody will reach out to you. Thank you very much to RISMedia Ace Content Solutions for sponsoring the webinar today, along with MoxieWorks. Mike, we appreciate you being on. Jim and Zach, the information was great. We appreciate you both being on as well and sharing with everybody so freely. Thanks to all of you for joining, and we'll talk to you next month.